Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing some Explorer in this week's Midweek Magic event. For those who don't know, Explorer is the paper-legal non-rotating format on Arena. This means that it is the format where your cards are never going to rotate out of legality, but also you don't play with any digital-only cards like alchemy cards and some of the weird historic designs either, so it is the Magic Arena equivalent to the Pioneer format, and the deck that I play in this format that I'll be playing again today is a very simple deck that is almost card for card the exact same build in Pioneer and Explorer. So it's a great deck to try out on Arena if you've ever been interested in jumping ship and playing some Paper Pioneer. Now that being said, Paper Pioneer I'm sure is very expensive, but technically you could run this exact build in Paper Pioneer and have a pretty good time there. This is my favorite deck that I've tried out in the format. I don't do a lot of constructed, and when I do play constructed formats like Standard and Explorer, I tend to like to play aggressive decks that can get me in and out of games quickly and give me some pretty simple gameplay overall, and this deck is great at doing that. It is very similar to drafting a mono-white aggro deck in Cube, which I have done many times before, so you'll have a lot of experience with a lot of these cards just from doing that. Cards like Adeline that spits out an army in a can. Just as you're attacking, you're spitting out more and more creatures, and Adeline herself is going to be massive. Cards like Thalia to slow down your opponent's removal spells and counter spells and all of that kind of stuff. Luminarch Aspirant can keep buffing your board as the game progresses. And Brutal Cathar is like a removal spell and a creature all in one. These are kind of like just the dream team that you've seen in mono-white aggro decks and cube drafts for a long time. Dauntless Bodyguard, Hopeful Initiate, and Recruitment Officer, other great cube staples. So a lot of cards in here that are going to be very familiar to cube drafters, even if you don't play a lot of constructed. That's another thing that I do like quite a bit about this deck. For some cards you might not have seen yet, there are Coppercoat Vanguards in here that buff all of your humans, because every creature in the deck is a human. And Thalia's Lieutenant, very similar, puts a +1/+1 counter onto all your humans, and then when you play more humans, the Lieutenant gets bigger. And the thing that's pretty crazy about this card is that it does count off of any token production as well. So if you play this pre-combat and then attack with anybody when you have an Adeline on board, you get a human token on the board, you buff that Thalia's Lieutenant. There's a lot of cute little synergies like that. Castle Ardenvale can become sort of a combat trick alongside the Thalia's Lieutenant as well, where at instant speed you get to make a human out of nowhere, buff that Thalia's Lieutenant up. So lots of little synergies and interesting things you can do in this deck, even if it is, at its core, a more simplistic, aggressive strategy. But that is a look at the deck we'll be playing today. Without further ado, let's hop into the gameplay, get a few free rewards. Here we are for game 1. I don't love this hand. I think it's always awkward to have double Mutavault in the opener, tying up the amount of white mana that we have, seeing as we don't really run any colorless spells in this deck, so puts us in a position where once I have 3 lands on board, I'm still only casting 1 spell a turn, instead of playing like Aspirant and Bodyguard in the same turn on turn 3. So I don't love the double Mutavault, but I do love the quality of spells that I have here. I'm going to go for a Thalia here. Even though we see a Rockfall Veil from them, they could still have cheap burn spells like Shock and stuff like that, like 1 mana deal 2 to a creature that we can tax to slow down their removal. Even if red-green's probably going to be a pretty creature-heavy deck, Thalia can be helpful anyway. And they are just going to concede, and that is something that definitely happens during midweek Magic events. They are completely free, and there's absolutely nothing on the line. You can play as much as you want to get your wins. So one of the things that people do sometimes is just kind of go in and do a bit of win trading there. Just hop in and see if their opponent concedes quickly, and if not, they'll just concede themselves. So I guess we get a free victory for the first prize, which is a bit of a bummer in terms of wanting to show off the deck a little bit, play a little more Explorer, but it is a little nice because if you can't tell, I am quite a bit under the weather right now, which is why I'm playing a midweek Magic instead of a full-on draft. I needed to do a very short recording session today. Basically canceled the rest of it due to illness, but all right, I guess that is one of our 3 wins as we move into game 2. And our random reward is going to be some gems. It is a rare from Phyrexia, all will be one. And since that's one of the newer draft formats on Arena, that does mean I have a full playset of all those rares and mythics. So anything we open there will just be gems, which I am perfectly happy with. Here we are for game 2. I like this hand a lot. Honestly, whenever I play Constructed, I find myself almost never mulliganing, which is probably incorrect, but that's one of those things from playing a ton of Limited. You just open up almost any hand in Constructed and you're like, oh my god, this hand's incredible. I'm going to drop the Thalia here turn 2 against mono red here. They do have a lot of spells like Kamano Faces Kakazan, Bolts, and Sorcery Speed card draw. Lots of non-creature spells potentially in their decks, and Thermo Alchemist is certainly going to prove that. We don't have a way to get the Alchemist out of the way, but I can work to buff the board state enough to attack past it. If I go Vanguard, Initiate here, next turn I go Lieutenant. And I actually sequenced that incorrectly. We should have played a Mutavault this turn since I didn't need triple white. I needed 2 white and a colorless. That way next turn I could activate Mutavault and then play Thalia's Lieutenant so that I get a +1/+1 counter on Mutavault as well and potentially attack with that. Now the Mutavault won't be attacking next turn, but I can still get the counter on it. Alright, there's the Flame Blessed Bolt on the Thalia. Does get taxed, so they are tapped out of mana here at least. Okay, Adeline is the draw. Interesting. Well, I think it's reasonable to just play Adeline then. And this makes sure that next turn when we do play the Lieutenant, we have a Mutavault that is not summoning sick. Definitely going to be some sloppy sequencing here for sure. I have not played any Constructed in months. But we're getting back into it. Get our free rewards today. And who knows, if I maintain top 250 in Mythic this season, then I guess I'll have to play Constructed next month. Because I believe next month's qualifier weekend event is going to be some kind of Constructed format, since this month is Wilds of Eldraine sealed. And if you are interested in more Wilds of Eldraine competitive limited, that is coming up very soon. We have a qualifier play-in this weekend, a qualifier play-in next weekend, and the qualifier weekend itself is also next weekend. So if you want to play any of that yourself, check those out. If you want to watch some, I will definitely have some of those videos up. Just to fill in the airtime a little bit here, our opponent's putting in some work towards ripping our board apart. We gotta wait for some burn spells to resolve. There we go. I thought they double burn spelled us, but it only killed 1 Vanguard. Oh, because the ward, one of them got warded. They twin Inferno'd and then got hit by ward there. That's rough. Okay. Eiganjo. I would rather just hold in my hand here. Let's activate Mutavault before I play Lieutenant, so we get a counter on that as well. Hit them with the big bazinga here. Everybody has plenty of toughness now to attack in. To the 1/4 and the 2/2. They can double block and kill 1, but they take 1,000,000 damage here. My Lieutenant gets bigger. And this is just where we want to be with the humans deck. They're down to 6, and we will pass from there. Our opponent's spinning their Thermo Alchemist wheels again, trying to get as much damage as they can, but we are at 14, so it would be very, very difficult for them to find a kill here. Another Thermo Alchemist. And we should be able to jam in for lethal thanks to Mutavault here. 5 attackers against 3 blockers. 2 creatures get in for at least 3 damage apiece. There is the concession from our opponent. That is 2 victories now. Time to grab our second random rare reward. And the random rare is also from Phyrexial will be 1. Interesting RNG there. I mean, I'll take it. I'm always down for more gems. A little suspicious it's from the exact same set each time, though. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 3 against a deck with Giganta in the companion slot. Very, very simple restriction on Giganta, so there's a lot of decks that are just naturally going to be able to play it. Because they're just already not going to be playing any cards with double red or double green or anything like that. So they could really be anything that has red or green in it. Heroic is the archetype. Drop a favorite hoplite turn 1. This archetype tends to play a ton of combat tricks and use those to just absolutely pop off out of nowhere. So I think Thalia should be really, really rude in this matchup. So we'll drop her down immediately. And then drop the Lieutenant afterward. Because also making a 3-2 first striking Thalia seems really, really nice. But yeah, they're going to cast like a lot of combat tricks and try to find lethal out of nowhere. And Illuminator Virtuoso definitely shows that off. They're going to try to give it like +4/+0, maybe kill us with double strike in like 1 hit. Do crazy things there. Oh, back at it again with the bad sequencing. I actually should have played Mutavault and activated it. Even if it was just going to stay on the board tapped, it would still get the counter there. So still be worth it. Alright, they might trade for Thalia here so that they can actually resolve some tricks. Nope. Actually, they wouldn't trade for Thalia. What am I talking about? This is double strike, so it's only 1 first strike damage, then it dies before it gets to deal the 2nd point of damage. Alright, favorite hoplite number 2. No blocks. Let's see if we draw another white source here. If so, I can play Lieutenant and Brave the Elements and maybe even just kill them. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not quite. Actually, 9, 10, 11. Literally like 1 damage off from lethal. Okay, don't hit another white source anyway for the Brave the Elements. Could just activate a Mutavault and cast a Hopeful Initiate here. Attack with 2 3-power creatures, 2 2-power creatures. Threatening 10 points of damage. We get to play a Lieutenant next turn or a Brave the Elements and kill them there. Sure, I think that's fine. I technically could still play Lieutenant and Brave the Elements here by sacking an Eiganjo, but again, it'd be 1 damage off from lethal. Just gonna make sure I don't die to some random combat trick here. Go for that chump block. Now we go Lieutenant Brave the Elements on white or red. Go red, so they're protected from burn spells too. Yeah, there's the concession. Alright. That is going to be the third victory. Time for the Mystery Cosmetic reward. This one's a pretty cool one because it is just any random cosmetic off arena. Could be a card style, that's what it's most likely going to be. But it could also be a pet or an avatar or something if you're really lucky. So let's see what we get here. We do get a Parallax card style for Savior of the Sleeping. Not the most exciting final prize, but definitely had a lot of fun with the Humans deck. I think this deck is just pretty nice for playing some simple aggro magic when you just want to grind out some quick games. And I highly recommend the deck if you have a lot of these cards in your collection already. Obviously, the problem is that this is one of the tier 1 Explorer or Pioneer kind of decks, so it does use a lot of rares, so quite a few wild cards. One thing that is nice about it is one of the most abundant wild card types is uncommon wild cards. And while this deck uses a lot of rares, everything else is an uncommon at least. There's no mythics in here. So there's like 4, 8, 12, plus 4, like 16 uncommons in the deck. So that part of the deck, that core of the deck, you can make. So you could probably build a mostly uncommon version of this deck that's still pretty strong while you build up your wild cards to work your way towards the complete version. But yeah, that is going to do it for today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. And if you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.